Zoe Kim, and today I'm going to be presenting my paper, People, Structure, and Agency in a Grocery Cooperative. This is an ethnography that I wrote for Professor Page's Urban Ethnography course last fall. So, I'll start by explaining a little bit about urban ethnography as a subject. It is a sector of the anthropological and the sociological type studies that focuses specifically on cities. And the important thing about urban ethnography is that cities are really big in the modern world. About 55% of the world's population currently lives in cities, and that's going to go up to around 68% by 2020. So when we're looking at urban ethnography, we're really looking at how we're shaped by our cities and how we are supposed to create meaningful relationships in cities. Because traditionally, people live in little clans with their families and other families, and their social structures are based around a kin-based social structure. You're the chief's daughter, and you know that your cousin is married to this person, and they're married to this person. But in cities, we don't have that as a fallback, so we have to create new social structures. And those social structures say a lot about our overall culture. So for my ethnographic project, I studied a grocery cooperative. Cooperatives in general are any organization that are run either by volunteers or by paid workers. But the important part is that they are completely controlled by members. They're fully democratic organizations. So you can see this is an example of a flat management structure in which all people are dependent on everyone else and no one is really above or below each other, as you would find in a traditional vertical hierarchical structure. So the point of a cooperative is to, 1, better its community, 2, be democratic and fair, and 3, follow the cooperative spirit. And the cooperative spirit is the idea that a lot of organizations had in the 1960s and 70s when these became popular, that you want to create an organization and a community that people feel proud to be a part of. And a cooperative is a little bit like what I think of as a labor union, except that a cooperative is born out of the idea that you want to create an organization that is run by the members, and a labor union is put onto an existing organization from the outside. So, the cooperative that I studied, I called X Street, and I'm just going to give you some quick facts here. X Street is here in New York City. It is a tiny 2-aisle mini-mart. It has about 100 members, 50 of which are working members, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. X Street is completely run by volunteers. The only benefit that they get monetarily is a discount on goods. So this is essentially an organic, locally sourced grocery store run by people who are being paid in groceries. They focus a lot on fresh produce, local groceries, and they try to avoid plastics, focus on organics, and really promote that lifestyle. The special thing about X Street is that they have this really incredible, tight-knit community. They've been around since 1995, so the people who go to X Street are the people who have been going to X Street since it opened in 1995. And you have these people who have lived in this area for the longest time, and they see it changing every year as gentrification changes the city, as the city's management changes the city, and has other organizations come in and out. But X Street survives, and it maintains its position in that neighborhood. The method that I used was an anthropological method. So this mostly consists of participant interviews, interaction, and observation. I found that interaction was really important in my study at X Street. People at X Street are proud of what they do, they're proud of where they are, and they want to talk about it. And the difficult thing about studying a tiny organization where people know each other is that you can't really sit and take notes discreetly in a corner because you're always in someone's way. So during my course of study at X Street, I sat at the cash register with the cashier, and I talked to people as they came in. So all of the quotes that I had were just dialogues. People just told me that they thought it was really important, and they told me that it was the most unique thing, and they gave me all these great plug quotes that I used in my essay. But another thing about the method is this idea of ease of entry, and that when you're studying an organization, you are an outsider, and you have to have the ability to enter that organization to really understand the social structure. And luckily, the people of X Street did not put up any barriers. They wanted me to study it, they wanted to hear about themselves from an outside perspective, and they wanted to talk about something that was really beautiful and really unique in their lives. Okay, So here's some pictures. Let me go back real quick. You got the storefront on the top left. It is open to the public. That's pretty unique for a cooperative. Most are members only. You can see the produce shelf, and then against the wall that you can't see in these crates, you've got apples, pumpkins, squash, anything that doesn't have to be refrigerated. The iconic free bin was a really surprising thing. It is a business, it's a for-profit business, but they have a basket of almost too old fruits and vegetables that they offer up for free. And anything that they throw out goes into the compost. So you're kind of getting an idea of the sort of organization this is. They also do mostly bulk goods. So you've got nuts, seeds, fruits, pastas, coffee, anything that you could buy at a normal supermarket in these bulk containers. And they try to discourage plastic as much as possible. So you can see here that they sell the glass bottles that they use for some of their packaging and really encourage people to bring their own because they don't want to create packaging. They try to discourage that. They will charge an extra on anything that comes prepackaged and try to encourage people to use the bulk goods as much as possible. So, I think that X Street is a horizontal organization, and the structure developed out of the ideals of anti-structure. So it's this group of people who were trying to get away from a traditional vertical structure, and they created an organization to reflect that. Here is a diagram that I created. So you can see the majority of people in X Street that were relevant to this were the members. So these are people who pay an annual fee, $70 to $80, to get the privilege of a discount on goods. Non-working members pay a slightly higher annual fee, but the working members work at least 2.25 hours a week and get about 20 to 25% discount on goods. Within the working members, there are these informal working groups. And each one of those is, again, informally headed by a super member. And these super members are working an additional 20, 30, or 40 hours a week at the cooperative, voluntarily, only for a discount on groceries. And this was a really interesting proposal that horizontalism suggested. That you have this completely flat structure where no one has a title, no one is anyone's boss, and no one is paid. So naturally there is work that has to be done, and there are people who are going to take up that work without any added compensation. So we'll start with a quote here from Eric. He was a working member of about 2 years, and he talked about how his favorite part was that the people who caused change were the people who benefited from change. If you wanted something to be done, there was no path for you to do that. You forged your own way, you changed what you wanted to change, and you got to reap the benefits. So horizontalism has developed out of these people who want to get as far away from hierarchy as possible. They want to create this haven for cooperative spirit, where people who have this ideal of working one for one vote to one person, equal democracy. It's this space that has been around for over 20 years where you can really feel that. You put your time in and you get to see your work turn into something valuable. But I found that this focus on true equality, where no one was above anyone else, meant that they were avoiding things like titles and avoiding hierarchy and often avoiding official procedure in an attempt to avoid giving anyone a specific role in the co-op. And a little bit more on the people. So Charles was the nominal president. He was only the president because legally a cooperative has to have a board of directors. But he was not necessarily a shirker of responsibilities, but certainly didn't take up much in that way. And he talked about the idea that the beauty of X Street was that someone could come in at any time and completely change it. If they found a way to encourage everyone to tear it down and rebuild it with a completely different face, they could. And so you're looking at these non-traditional people running a non-traditional organization. And these people who in the city are feeling unrepresented. These people who maybe have more socialist or communist leaning beliefs, and these people who don't feel like the current political system is really standing for what they believe. So within this giant anonymous bubble of the city, they are creating a tiny community bubble where they all feel like they belong. And when you talk about what's affected, it's people who talk about feeling this communal feeling and having a sense of purpose. This is Raven. She was one of the super members. So on top of her full-time job, she was putting in 30 to 40 hours a week to order all of the produce for X Street. And I talked to her, like, how are you doing this? How are you finding the time and the energy to put this in and get the same exact compensation as someone who puts in 2 hours on a Saturday? And she didn't see it as something negative. She saw it as something beautiful, that she was putting in her energy to something that was something she cared about, and that it made her feel like she belonged somewhere and she had a real impact. But from the outside, I felt like all I could see was that the monthly meetings were never monthly, and the people who went were the 5 people who were working that 40 hours. Those same super members were bearing the brunt of the co-op when everyone still got an equal vote and got to feel as though they were bearing the brunt of the co-op. And so this brings me to sustainability. Is X Street sustainable? Is the horizontalism something that can last? And what I found is that it is, because the people who are involved really believe in it. I talked to Cameron, who was a non-working member, but had been going for a very long time, probably since close to opening. And she talked about how the very base of X Street was not horizontalism, it was not grocery store, it was not about getting a discount, it was about something authentically good. And that the people who were involved were authentically good. So when it comes to sustainability, it doesn't seem sustainable to me, but X Street has been there for over 20 years. And the beautiful thing about horizontalism is that no matter what I think, if the majority of members believes that something should change, then it will. There really is something beautiful about a truly democratic system, and I think that that's something that's lost. For instance, in America, when you go from having 10 people starting a revolution to millions of people living on a tiny island called Manhattan, how are you supposed to feel represented? How are you supposed to feel like your voice matters? You have to create a space where your voice matters. So I think that the most incredible thing about X Street is that it was born because people needed it, and it continues because people continue to fight for it. And the most important thing that someone told me was that the best thing about X Street is that it's a work in progress. That's constantly changing, and there is no right or wrong unless it's decided by the members. Thank you.